Want to bring in now Michigan Congresswoman Debbie Dingell for more on this conversation. Congresswoman, as always, it's great to speak to you. Let me read for folks the tweet that you put out there after the shooting at MSU. Enough is enough. Everybody must come together now to move important legislation to expand background checks, improve and enforce red flag laws, expand safe storage laws, and improve access to mental health services. I'm going to bet you have tweeted something like this, some iteration of this tweet before, after other mass shootings. This one, obviously, particularly different for you, being that it happened in your state. Nonetheless, how do you get something like this done with a Republican-controlled House?
Yasmin, first of all, I used to say thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers don't cut it anymore. I thought when Parkland happened 5 years ago that the kids would make the difference. And here we are 5 years later, and we haven't made a difference. In Michigan, we will pass laws in the state legislature. There is a commitment there by small majority to get all background checks, red flag laws, and safe gun storage done. And I believe it'll be done in the next few weeks, and the governor will sign it. I'm gonna be with my kids at the University of Michigan, where you saw last night the basketball game, which was a very emotional. Sorry, I get emotional about this. We're going to have a large gathering on Wednesday night, and I'm going to tell them they got to keep advocating. They got to keep making their voices heard. I don't think they listen to people like me, and I've had my own very personal experiences, but we can't stop. We can't stop making our voices heard, and I'm going to encourage them to come to Washington to contact their kids at other campuses, and we're just going to keep pushing until the change we have to get done.
Congresswoman, why do you get particularly emotional when speaking about this?
Look, I've had my own. I didn't talk about what happened in my own life with a father that shouldn't have had access to guns until we were talking about guns and trying to do something when we did the sit-in on the first floor. I spent a lot of time on the campus of the University of Michigan. I talked to those kids. I know that they're scared. I know that their life is not like the one that I had. They go to school in their high schools and grade schools, were taught what to do if a gunman came into their school. That's not a way to live. People in this country don't feel safe in movie theaters, shopping centers, churches. When I go to church, I have an escape plan. I sit in the back row and know how I'm going to get out fast. That's not the way to live. And when are we going to say in this country, we've got to do something? And I'm going to tell you something else. It's not just gun laws. It's mental health laws. It's getting people access to mental health. And when you know somebody's a danger, which is what red flag laws are supposed to do, being able to do something and being a person that has tried to make the law work and could not work it, I know we have a crisis in this country. And we got to put the human face on it. Maybe people like me, who people think nothing could ever happen to somebody like that, putting the human face on it, the kids putting the human face on it, we can't stop until we get it done.
It seems as if, Congresswoman, and I'm thankful that you're being so raw about all of this, because it is enraging to see this happening, having covered so many of these shootings throughout the country. So we appreciate your honesty amidst all of this. It seems as if this is becoming more of a local issue than it can be a national issue right now, because there's only so far national legislation can go with a Republican-run House at the moment, right? But even when there was a Democrat-controlled House, there was only so far legislation would go after Uvalde. I want to play for you, if I can, some sound from a state senator, State Senate Majority Leader Winnie Brinks, who I spoke with yesterday, who has 10 bills, I believe, on the docket, and she thinks it's going to get passed for the state of Michigan. Let's play what she had to say, and then we'll talk.
There's a set of 10 bills that would establish universal background checks. We would implement extreme risk protection orders. And there's a multitude of other policies that we could pursue in the future, but we are going to start there. They are both incredibly well supported among our constituents. And the urgency of this situation has really created an environment where we think we can get those done immediately.
We know the Biden administration had success with some gun legislation after Uvalde, but a lot of folks don't think it went far enough, right? Even though the Biden administration personally wanted to go further. when it comes to making changes happen, have we now moved to more of a local level when it comes to legislation because of the resistance at the top?
So one, as I said at the beginning of this, we will get it done in Michigan. Senator Brinks is right that there is a will among Democrats, and I believe some Republicans will support it. Quite frankly, it's good that we got this very narrow bill done in the Congress last year. It took one senator to block a bill in the United States Senate. But quite frankly, we're focused on the kids right now, and we need to, but in the Fifth Circuit Court, Appeals Court 2 weeks ago, what they did to victims of domestic violence, and they gutted. I have a bill that's trying to protect victims of domestic violence, and it didn't protect them. They gutted the boyfriend loophole, which Amy Klobuchar and I reintroduced in a bipartisan way. Brian Fitzpatrick did it with me. But now we are telling victims of domestic abuse in the Fifth Circuit Court area that if they have a protection order, that the person that has threatened them can still have access to a gun. Because the Second Amendment, when it was written, didn't say that those that had gone after them had a court process that said they couldn't have a gun. Where is the victim's due process? Where is the victim's? And we're at a point that we need to start talking about who's got right and how we're going to protect them.
You're talking about the Strengthening Protections for Domestic Violence and Stalking Survivors Act of 2023. And just to remind folks, this bill would actually close loopholes in current federal law that allows abusers and stalkers to, in fact, access guns. Congresswoman, I just want to pivot for a second, if we can, because obviously we've been seeing the story out of Ohio with the train derailment there. A lot of folks are really scared, really worried about their safety and their health. Clean drinking water, air quality as well, not just in the coming days, but years. I know there was a train derailment as well in the state of Michigan, in Van Buren Township, Michigan, near Detroit. You've been in contact with officials on the ground. I think kind of the overarching 30,000 foot above question is, what needs to be done here to make freight rail travel safer?
Well, we obviously have to dig into it. That derailment that you're talking about was in my district. And quite frankly, EPA didn't even know the derailment had happened when I called them because I was on top of it. And thankfully, there was only one car that had hazardous substance in it, chlorine, and it did not derail and did not spill. But, we haven't invested in infrastructure. Railroads are part of our infrastructure. The infrastructure bill is addressing the water issues, roads and bridges, but we got to start and in this instance, the train was owned and operated separately from the people that owned the tracks. DOT, and the Railroad Administration, we've got to have oversight hearings in the Congress, not do this in a partisan way. But that community in Ohio is scared to death. They've got a right to answers. I've had 10 chemical spills, by the way, in my district in the last 2 years. We've got to address these issues. We've ignored them for too long, and it's simply not okay. And we've got to invest in our railroad tracks like we're investing in everything else.
Representative Debbie Dingell, as always, we thank you.